In the warm, quiet afternoon of July 13, 2022, something terrible happened in Tamarack, Florida. Inside a modest apartment on Northwest 61st Avenue, a young woman was found unresponsive. Her name was Kayla Hodgson. She was just 23. Kayla wasn't sick. She hadn't been in an accident. She had been stabbed multiple times in what police would later describe as a targeted attack. The person responsible? Not a neighbor. Not a friend. And not someone Kayla had ever met face to face. The woman accused of taking her life was obsessed, filled with anger, and had crossed state lines just days before. She was someone Kayla likely didn't even know by name. Before we go deeper into this heartbreaking case, if you care about real-life stories that deserve attention, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss what really happened behind the headlines. Kayla's apartment complex was ordinary. Beige walls, quiet hallways, a place where neighbors mostly kept to themselves. But that day, it became the scene of a tragedy that no one expected. Police arrived at the complex just after 3 p.m. following a 911 call. Officers and paramedics rushed to the unit, but it was already too late. Kayla's body was found near the entryway of her home. There were no signs of a break-in. No calls for help had been made. Her neighbors told police they hadn't heard anything unusual. Just silence, until the sirens pulled up. The initial investigation moved quickly. Crime scene techs combed through every inch of her apartment. The wounds told a story of rage. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't random. Whoever had done this came with a purpose, and they made sure Kayla didn't survive. It didn't take long for detectives to rule out robbery. Nothing was stolen. Kayla's phone and purse were still inside. Her keys sat untouched by the door. What was missing was any clear reason why someone would do this to her. Before her name made headlines, Kayla Hodgson was just a young woman trying to live life to the fullest. At only 23 years old, she was known by everyone around her as someone who could light up any room. Friends described her as the kind of person who always had a beautiful smile, always ready to laugh, and never said no to a night out. She worked as a bottle attendant, a job that put her in high-energy spaces, nightclubs, lounges, private parties. It was demanding work, but Kayla embraced it. She liked being around people. She liked being seen. Her social media was full of videos of her dancing, smiling, popping champagne for clients, or just having fun with her friends. In almost every post, she looked carefree. Her pictures showed beaches, rooftops, vacation selfies, and long nights that turned into mornings. She lived in bold colors, bright clothes, full lashes, and energy that never seemed to run out. Her followers knew her as the life of the party. But the people close to her knew that deep down, Kayla wanted something simple. Love, trust, and someone who truly cared for her. She was young, yes, but she was serious about finding someone to build with. In early 2022, during a weekend trip to Miami, she met a man named Terry. At first, everything seemed perfect. Terry would visit her in Florida. Sometimes they met halfway. Like every young woman, Kayla thought she had finally found something solid. In her eyes, this was the kind of man she could build a future with. She had no idea there was anything hidden beneath the surface. What she didn't know was that Terry wasn't being honest. Behind the sweet words and planned dates, he was already in a long-term relationship with another woman. Her name was Sakiyna Thompson. She was a well-known nail technician based in New York. In her community, she wasn't just another stylist. She was popular, skilled, and successful. Her work spoke for itself. Clients loved her. Her social media was full of before and after nail sets, glowing reviews, and smiling selfies. But it wasn't just nails and beauty content on her page. If you scrolled further, there were photos of her and Terry. Together at restaurants, walking through Times Square, matching outfits on birthdays. Every caption told a story of devotion. She often wrote about loyalty, trust, and keeping what's hers. Some posts had words that felt personal. Like this one's right here.
You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right?
Gotcha, nigga!
In another post, she showed Terry wearing custom-made underwear with her face printed on it. To most people, it looked like a woman in love. But to those paying closer attention, there was something else. Something a little too intense. Her page wasn't just about showing love, it was about claiming ownership. In July 2022, Sakiyna and Terry took a trip together to Florida. It wasn't their first vacation, but this one would be different. They checked into a hotel and shared posts of palm trees, seafood dinners, and sunny mornings. Everything looked normal. But not long after they arrived, something changed. According to reports, Sakiyna found out that Terry was involved with someone else. The woman's name was Kayla Hodgson. How she found out isn't fully known. Maybe it was a message, a tagged post, or a change in behavior. But what investigators later uncovered was this. Sakiyna used either social media or tracking information to figure out where Kayla lived. Sometime on July 13, 2022, Sakiyna left wherever she and Terry were staying. She didn't say where she was going. She made her way to Tamarack, to the exact address where Kayla lived. According to court documents, when she got there, she entered Kayla's home and attacked her. Investigators say Kayla was stabbed multiple times with force and precision. There was no argument, no warning, no time to call for help, just silence. By the time police arrived, Kayla had already passed. The scene was described as painful to witness. Her personal items were still in place. Her phone was nearby. There were no signs of forced entry. No theft. No chaos, just the heartbreaking end of a young woman's life. Authorities later called the act planned. Every action, every move carefully thought through. It wasn't something done in the heat of a moment. They described it as a deliberate choice, carried out with clear intent. After the tragedy in Tamarack, Sakiyna Thompson quietly returned to New York. She resumed her life like nothing had happened. She went back to her neighborhood in Springfield Gardens, Queens, a calm part of the city where people knew her as a talented nail technician. If anyone suspected something had changed in her, they didn't say it out loud. Back in Florida, Kayla's family was grieving. Her friends were still in shock. Memorial posts flooded social media. People couldn't understand what had happened or why. She had no known enemies. She hadn't been involved in anything risky. The community demanded answers, but for a while there were none. Weeks passed. The case was active but quiet. Detectives gathered evidence, messages, photos, surveillance clips. They searched phone records. They built a timeline. Eventually, the pieces started falling into place. The evidence pointed to someone who had been in Florida at the exact time of the incident. Someone who had a reason to feel threatened. Someone who had returned to New York almost immediately after Kayla was found. On the surface, it might have looked like coincidence. But deeper down, investigators found things they couldn't ignore. In early August 2022, just over 3 weeks after the attack, authorities moved forward. The New York Police Department arrived at a home in Springfield Gardens. There they took 28-year-old Sakiyna Thompson into custody. She was later extradited to Broward County, Florida, where she would face a first-degree murder charge. The documents described a planned, intentional act. One that showed full awareness of the harm it would cause. At the time of the arrest, police didn't release an official motive. They didn't speak at length to the press. They didn't hold a public conference. But behind closed doors, the conversation was already turning toward what had likely driven the act. Those closest to Kayla believed it was jealousy. They pointed to Sakiyna's old posts. They remembered how protective she had been over Terry. Some mentioned her past behavior, controlling, possessive. There had been whispers of a police report from an earlier incident involving another boyfriend. Something about a car being set on fire. Something about threats. Still, nothing could be proven yet. And the man at the center, Terry, stayed silent. He didn't post. He didn't comment. He didn't speak to the media. Some believed he was in hiding. Others thought he was trying to avoid attention. What's clear is that while two women's lives were torn apart, he quietly stepped away from the chaos. No one could say exactly what he knew. No one could say what he told police. His name wasn't listed in the charge sheet. And for many people following the case, that silence felt heavy. This wasn't just a story about love or betrayal. It became a question of accountability. How could a young woman lose her life like this, and the person caught in the middle say nothing? As Sakiyna sat in custody awaiting her fate, Kayla's loved ones were left to pick up the pieces. They searched for peace, knowing that justice might take time. But they also knew they had lost someone who could never be replaced. Kayla Hodgson was full of life. She loved to laugh, she loved her friends, and she believed in the idea of love, the kind that makes you feel seen and safe. She was the kind of girl who believed that real love would find her. And when she met Terry, she truly thought it had. No one ever dreams that falling in love could cost them their life. No one ever thinks that choosing the wrong person could end in something so final. For Kayla, there were no warnings. No threats. No signs that another woman had been watching her, tracking her, angry over a man Kayla didn't even know was taken. Now, her family was left with questions and a funeral to plan. It was more than any parent or sibling should ever have to face. To help with the costs, a GoFundMe campaign was created. It quickly began to fill with donations, messages, and prayers. Strangers and loved ones wrote about how unfair it all was. How someone so young, so full of potential, could be gone without reason. A few days later, on a quiet evening in Tamarack, dozens of people gathered in her memory. Friends, family, co-workers, even people who had never met her in person stood side by side. Balloons were released into the sky, one by one, floating upward in silence. Some were pink, some white. Some carried small notes tied with ribbon. There were tears. There was anger. But most of all, there was love. That moment was Kayla. Bright, peaceful, floating high above the pain she never saw coming. Still, the questions haven't gone away. Why weren't the warning signs taken seriously? How far can jealousy go before someone steps in? Why do we ignore red flags just because they're written in pretty captions? This story isn't just about Kayla. It's about what happens when love turns into control, and when silence allows obsession to grow. Kayla didn't deserve what happened to her. She was living her life, trusting the wrong person, and got caught in something she had no part in creating. Let this be a reminder: what we see online isn't always the full picture. Not every smile tells the truth. Not every post means peace. And sometimes, the people who say they love the hardest can also hurt the deepest. If Kayla's story moved you, subscribe to the channel and tap the bell so you don't miss what's real behind the headlines. Leave a comment below. Do you think this could have been prevented? What signs do people miss when love turns into something else?